Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. I'm sorry about the challenges on the startup, but what happened was there was a network disconnection and maybe it played and maybe it didn't. So let's go play the intro. Well, that was pretty crazy, but welcome everybody to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I am your host, and today we are going to be talking about Dubai chocolate, or in an episode I call Dubious Dubai. Dubiously Dubai? Before we get there, I'd like to remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by the members of The Chocolate Life. You can go to TheChocolateLife.com. It is this is the homepage. It is live, and you can go and click on the join button and become a member. There's always a free membership, and there are monthly memberships which start as little as $5 a month. And so before I continue, your support is obviously appreciated if you go and do that. If you're not in a financial situation to be able to become a premium member and all of the benefits that come with premium memberships, I completely understand. A free membership supports the work that we do, as the work that I do as well. I also want to mention that you can go into the comments, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube and Facebook, the live chat on YouTube, and you can let me know where in the world you're connected from. Or if not where in the world you are connected from, then you can, if you've got a question or some comment that you'd like to make about today's episode, please let me know. Get it into the comments. I will do my best to get it up on the screen and asked and answered. And with that, let's go over to the post for today's episode. And I do create a post for every single episode of the Pod Save Chocolate. And here is the post for today's episode. And so this is a run of show. These episodes are not scripted. And so the run of show is pretty much just the order of things that I'm going to talk about things in. And there are also links that you can go to and refer to them afterwards. As a matter of fact, on the screen right now, there's a QR code up in the upper left-hand corner. And if you're watching on one device and you have another device, you can follow along this post by scanning the QR code and bringing it up on the other device. I have talked about Dubai chocolate before. So in episode 148, right, in a sort of palindromic kind of sense, this is 184. And I did talk about this, and I talked about it in terms of the sort of a little bit of history of what Dubai chocolate is, so you can get a little bit of history of Dubai chocolate and what I think about what we can take away from Dubai chocolate in terms of ingredients and textures and other things, and think about what might be a future Dubai chocolate. And if you're interested, you can go not just read what it is that I have to say, but you can watch the episode and follow along. And if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can go down to the comments at the bottom of the page and let me know if you agree with what it is that I'm saying, or you think I have no idea with what it is that I'm saying. So just wanted to let everybody know about that. But in any event, if anybody is watching, please go into the comments and let me know. I'm seeing that I'm live, but I don't see that anybody is watching on YouTube. So if I'm LinkedIn and Facebook, just quick shout out into the comments. Just let me know, hey, everything is okay. I'm hoping that is. I had to leave the studio and come back in, and I'm not sure where things are left off, but please let me know. It was just a disconnection between the server and my browser. Just wanted a network hiccup just as I logged on. So please let me know. But in any event, here's the idea. So Dubai chocolate is this huge global craze, right? And there is a lot of chocolate which is called Dubai style chocolate. And what does that mean? And then also there are lots of chocolate adjacent products that label themselves as Dubai. And I live in north central Arizona in a small town We do have one sort of upscale grocery store. We have a Sprouts. We have a specialty bakery store that does carry some specialty chocolate. We have a lovely chocolatier here in town called Black Butterfly. We have a fabulous chocolate maker from the Bean Orinoco chocolate. So we do have good chocolate, which is readily available here. But when we think about Dubai chocolate, there's nobody who's making it locally. And then if I do go into whether it's Sprouts or Fry's or a Safeway, there's even a Walmart here. I mean, there's a Trader Joe's, but I can't get to it easily. I don't own a car. And so going to Trader Joe's, I'm not quite sure what I feel about them now that they're owned by Aldi. So Dubai chocolate is not something which is necessarily really accessible to me. But I was walking down the street last week, and I walked into a local convenience store for some reason. I was, looking for a beverage or something, and I saw on the counter when I was checking out, there were three different styles of Dubai chocolate, and I bought all three. I'm saying I'm a convenience store without a gas station, so it's just a convenience store. And I'm trying to wonder, oh my gosh, what it is, what are people buying? And I had this long conversation with the person behind the counter, and they say, yeah, we sell these out regularly. And I'm going, wow, that's pretty crazy, selling them out regularly. What does that all mean? What does that all mean? And so this is where we are. I went and bought all three of them. The most expensive one of them is $9.95. And I'm going to try all three of these bars. Haven't had them before. I opened them up, so make it easy for me to get into them, but I haven't tasted any of the three. You're going to get my live impressions of them. But before I do, I wanted to talk about, this is what the original Dubai chocolate bar, this is from Fix Dessert Cafe. It's in Dubai, and this is what the bar looks like. It's a milk chocolate bar. As you can see, it's fairly thick, right? Looks like it's at least a centimeter thick, and it is decorated with green and orange colored cocoa butter. You can see an ingredient here. This is the pistachio paste. This is the shredded phyllo dough. And this is how the bars from the Fix Cafe are marketed. And this particular bar is called Can't Get Enough of It. Can't get enough of it. And they have a bunch of different bars, similar format. Pretty cool, right? So that's it. So I went in, here I am in, talking about it. I went in and I said, okay, number one is the original bar is milk chocolate. That's important to know. The original bar is milk chocolate. And the filling consists of pistachio paste. So kanafe, which is basically a shredded phyllo dough, right? Butter, sugar, cream, vanilla, and salt. So if I look at the ingredients, let me make them a little bigger here. So if I look at the ingredients, one thing that I noticed that many recipes and many people who talk about this says there's tahini in it. So there's a seed paste in addition to a nut paste. But in the original recipe, there's butter and cream. And so in some respects, this is a little bit more like a ganache recipe, even though there's no chocolate in it. It's more like a ganache recipe than it is a nut paste recipe. And I think that's important when it comes to the flavor profile. So butter is going to deliver a different flavor, and the cream is going to deliver a different texture. Butter is more solid at room temperature. It's a different texture at room temperature than sesame seed is certainly going to be, and so sesame seed paste tahini is going to be. And so it's a really interesting recipe. And it talks a little bit why I think about why it is so indulgent. I think that it's really important to understand that this is the original recipe. There's no tahini, there's no sesame paste in the original recipe, right? But here we have it: pistachio paste, butter, sugar, cream, vanilla, and salt. That's it. Right? So let's go. What we do so this note to myself: sesame paste is often added, but it's not in the original ingredients list. Okay, so let's go take a look at the first of the three products I'm going to be talking about today. So these are Dubai chocolate cones. I'm going to bring myself center stage. So these are Dubai chocolate cones. That is the name of the product. If we go and take a look at it, what you'll do is we'll zoom in on it. Let me make sure I've got the focus over here. Come on. Right. And let's go around it. So number one, it's a premium product. That's always nice to know that you're consuming a premium product. It looks like an ice cream cone. So a standard sugar cone. It looks like the end has been dipped in chocolate. So the chocolate goes all the way around, pistachios on top. There's pistachio cream inside, rich, smooth, and decadent, like Dubai. Interesting. In every bite. And what have we got here? Let's see, what else is, it says twice the luxury because there are 2 cones inside this. It's original. Okay, so let's take a look at that. That's what we're expecting. Let's go take a look at the next image. What we've got here is an image of the ingredients. So let's, the ingredients. It's got pistachio cream, so 47.2%. Okay. Normally, I would say that 47.2% by weight is going to be what's in here, but there are some other things that let me think that that's not the case. So it's got sugar. It's fully hydrogenated extra virgin, misspelled, virgin olive oil. Why is anybody hydrogenating olive oil is crazy for me. There's an emulsifier, sunflower lecithin, salt, colorants. Now, this is obviously for the American market, because if this was a European market, you'd have to list the colorants in it. The wafer, which is the cone, 24.8%. All right. Sodium benzoate, which is a preservative, potassium sorbate, which is a preservative, white chocolate at 30%, 29.8%, guar gum, kataifi, which is a shredded phyllo dough, cocoa mass, wheat flour, dark chocolate. So here's where my brain goes crazy. 54% plus 30% plus 25% is already over 100%. And then there's another 47%. So whatever it is that's going on here in the ingredients, it's not a legal ingredient list. It's not organized properly. So, for example, is the pistachio cream sweetened with sugar, and then the texture of it is changed by adding the extra virgin olive oil? This is dark chocolate, but we don't know what the cocoa mass, right? We don't know what the ratio is when it comes to 54%. So this is saying that the dark chocolate is 54%, the white chocolate is 29%, the wafer is 24.8% of what, right? By weight, I'm not sure, right? I thought I knew what it was, and I don't know what it is. So that's the ingredient list that's here. And let's go and talk about the image we've got. So here, what you're looking at is, this is what the things look like. You'll notice that there is this, let me zoom it up a little bit. You'll notice that it looks like the end piece was dipped in chocolate, right? And what I got that doesn't resemble what it is that the picture looks like. There are no large pieces of pistachio. Let me grab this. Well, yeah, let me grab this out of here. There are no large pieces of pistachio. This is, very, very much not what it is I'm expected based on the picture. So you never want to have a picture of something, and when you open it up, it doesn't look like what you're expecting, right? But if I stick my nose in, right, what it is that I'm thinking about is, for Americans, this smells like a sugar cone. So you're walking into an ice cream parlor and you smell, especially if they're making the sugar cone, that batter, that is the dominant smell. I'm not smelling pistachio. I'm not smelling chocolate. I'm not smelling anything else. What I'm smelling is the sugar cone. And here is a cross section. I decided to cut it in half. Let me make this a little bigger. Yeah, let me make it a little bigger. So here is the cross section. And what it looks like is that the interior of the cone was filled with chocolate and then dumped out. So the chocolate is being used as a barrier for the fat in the pistachio to keep the cone crunchy, right? It's a great way to do that, as a matter of fact. If you ever going to serve ice cream and you in cones, in if you own a chocolate shop, the thing to do would be to take some of your chocolate and then to um, line the inside of the cones with your chocolate. Number one is the melting chocolate won't drip through the cone with the number one. And everything's got chocolate in it, if that makes sense. And you can upcharge. You can plain cones and chocolate lined cones, but this is what it looks like inside. And one of the things that immediately occurs to me looking at this, if I go back and look at the Dubai bar, let me go and put that up on screen. The Dubai bar from Fix, um, is that um, the shredded phyllo is an ingredient in the paste in the center. And in this, the cone is the vehicle for containing the pistachio paste. And so um, the the texture that I'm expecting the texture is going to be dominated by the cone. The texture is not going to be dominated by the pistachio paste, which is what makes the original Dubai bar amazing. The texture is dominated by the filling, not by the outside. I mean, there is a texture associated with biting through the milk chocolate, right? But that's not the primary textural component. It's an added component. With this biting through, you're getting the everything is about the cone, right? So, right, even if I smell it, right, the smell is dominated by the cone. But let's take a bite. So, I mean, the flavor of the cone is so dominant here that it says pistachio paste as an ingredient, but I love pistachios. I have some wonderful roasted pistachios sitting in my kitchen. There's nothing about this that screams at me and says pistachio. Um, there's added sugar. So take at the list of the ingredients. Um, there's added sugar. So the primary flavor component here is sugar. Um, and then the cone. The texture is dominated by the cone. The flavor is dominated by the cone. If you just go and scoop out some pistachio paste, the 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 flavor of sugar is dominant. There doesn't appear to be any flavorings, so there's no vanilla in here. Um, and I'm kind of wondering, where is the white chocolate in this? So I'm kind of wondering if the white chocolate in the hydrogenated virgin olive oil, misspelled, um, are uh, being added to the pistachio cream, and they're what's responsible for the fact that it's fairly warm in here. It's well above 20 degrees centigrade in my office here at the moment, and this is soft, but it's not runny. It's a nut paste. It's soft, but it's not runny. And so I'm guessing that the hydrogenated extra virgin olive oil and the white chocolate are being used to stabilize the pistachio cream, so there's no separation. Um, that would be my guess. And the long finish that's coming on here, the long finish is, yeah, it's it's sugar and whatever is in the cone. I'm not getting chocolate. Um, there's so much texture associated with the cone that even though the ingredient list, I'm sorry if I wasn't sharing it, even though the ingredient list does says katifi shredded phyllo dough, straticophilo dough, the texture of the cone is so overwhelming that it's not adding anything to the texture of the pistachio filling, whatever it is. So number one, just not number one, but something else to take a look at. I noticed that the word extra virgin was misspelled. Virgin, V-E-R-G-I-N. That's not the way virgin is spelled. And if I go take a look at the back of it, they misspelled the word chocolate. So that's chocolate, C-H-O-C-L-A-T-E. They misspelled the word chocolate on these. These aren't chocolate cones. I mean, may have chocolate on it. So at least if I read the ingredients list, and the ingredients list doesn't appear to adhere to labeling laws, this ingredients list, they actually can use the word chocolate on here, which is not a bad thing. But having tasted it, is it worth the roughly $5 that this cost? The answer is, I don't think so. And I'll do a rating on this. I'm going to use the Chocolate Tier List rating towards the end. But before we go there, also on the back, one of the things it says, it's manufactured for this company called Crave, manufactured for. And what that tells you is that Crave is a marketing company. And so what does that all mean? So we're going to go to the state of New Hampshire registrar. We're going to go to the Department of State. We're going to go look up Crave. And it turns out there's only one Crave, which is listed in Salem, New Hampshire. It's actually Crave Labs, LLC. And we go and we take a look at Google Maps. And what we do is we find that here is the headquarters, the registered address for Crave Labs, LLC. It's between a Chinese restaurant, a smoke shop, and a hairdresser. So this appears to be, is it upstairs? Chris's Cards and Comics. So this is the address. This is the home of Crave, the people who are selling this particular Dubai chocolate product, Dubai chocolate cones. It's an interesting concept, all right? It's to take the idea, put it in an entirely different format, one that is very, very familiar to Americans. I think it's an interesting idea. However, I don't think that the execution of it is up to the level of the idea. All right. So, Mike, this is from Mike King, Encore Coffee Company in Kansas City, Missouri. So, hello from Kansas City. Don't most Dubai bars contain tahini? And Mike, the answer to that question is maybe. Right? So I did ask the question. I came down here sort of at the very end. So trivia, why add tahini? So, my guess is that it's to reduce the recipe cost. That's because tahini is considerably cheaper than pistachio paste. If you're buying a bulk tahini, as opposed to a bulk pistachio paste, the bulk tahini will come in at under $5 a pound, whereas bulk pistachio paste will come in somewhere between $25 and $30 a pound. That's what's here. But if you're doing a premium tahini and or a premium pistachio paste, even if the tahini is costing more, if you were to get a really good quality Sicilian or Iranian pistachio paste, then you're talking about way more than $25 to $30 a pound for pistachio paste. So I think what people are doing is they're using tahini to reduce recipe cost. Tahini is a premium ingredient when you compare it with the cost of a generic butter. But if you were to go in and use a high-fat butter that's used in high-end baking and confectionery, like a plus gras or something like that, plus gras just means extra fat in French, and a very high-quality dairy, an organic, sort of locally sourced dairy, they might be around the same price. But it turns out that tahini is 20% of the cost of pistachios. And I think that one of the reasons people started using tahini is to reduce the cost of their product, number one. And number two is because it's vaguely Middle East. People think of tahini and they think of places like the United Arab Emirates. They think of Dubai. They think of the Middle East, which is where the shredded phyllo dough is where it's going to come from. So it makes sense as an ingredient because it's a regional ingredient. But I think it's done as a way to cut costs. I asked myself that exact same question, Mike. And I went and I took a look, did some research, and these are the original ingredients that are on the label of the original bar from Fixed Desserts in Dubai. And tahini is not an ingredient. And I was going, I thought so too. I thought tahini was in most quote unquote Dubai bars. And it turns out that it's not in the original, which makes me wonder, again, is there are lots of ways that I could play with the texture of this. Number one is I'm looking at what is the fat content of the butter. Am I using a high fat butter? So Plugra's around 80%. A normal butter that you're going to buy, at a grocery store is lower than that. Here in the United States, it usually doesn't get much higher than about 80%. Butter does. But am I adding it in at room temperature and creaming it in, or creaming it in and then folding in the paste? Am I melting it, right, and then creaming it into the paste? The cream, again, depending, is it cream or is it whipping cream or is it extra heavy whipping? I mean, there are different fat levels which come in cream. And so there are ways I can play with the fat content. And then depending upon how, again, if it's melted butter as opposed to room temperature butter, am I creaming the butter with the sugar to incorporate a lot of air into it as I would for a baked good, and then folding the pistachio paste in? I mean, there's lots of ways to play with the texture here, right? If you're a baker, you understand how, using melted butter as opposed to room temperature butter, and how you add the sugar in and things like that are going to affect the texture, the crumb, all these aspects of the baked product. And I think that there are aspects of the method of making the filling which are not being covered here. And because this is a dessert cafe, because there's a bakery component to this, my guess is the people who invented this recipe are taking what it is that they know about baking, and adding it into the way they put together not just the filling for this bar, but also all these other fillings. So I'm taking a look at some of the, mind your own business Biscoff. So I'm imagining that if they're taking, again, the idea of Biscoff in the center, how are they taking the ingredients, which I don't have access to here? There are ways that they could play with the way the ingredients are incorporated into the filling, into the center, that would have a huge impact on the texture of what's going on. So seriously choosy, there's some cereal in here. Again, I don't know what these all are. Butter to be soft and salty. So this sounds like a salted butter caramel, maybe. You get the idea. But if what's going on, let me escape from this. If what's going on is they are, playing, as I believe they are, with how the ingredients are incorporated, then they're seriously able to play with the texture, which I think is really, really cool. Right? That's the first one. So I have a version of a tier list, which is called the TheChocolateLife Tier List. And most tier lists have 6 levels. So there's S, A, B, C, there's D, and there's F. So there's no center point here, right? And so my tier list is S, A, B, O for ordinary, and then C, D, F, right? And the way I work with it is everything starts off with an O, right? Everything starts off as ordinary. And then you either deduct points or you add points until you get to where you're going to put them on the scale. I hope that makes sense. It's a 7-point scale. There's a midpoint. And so I'm going to put this, firmly in D tier. If I could give it a D minus, I probably would, but it's definitely in D tier because there's nothing about it that respects the original idea of the product, other than the fact that there's apparently some pistachio paste in it. Otherwise, and there's some shredded phyllo. but there's nothing about it that, if I go take a look at the original idea, there's nothing about it that goes, we're respecting the original concept. So that's it. Can't recommend them. Right now, the next one is called Boncuk's Dubai Chocolate. It's made by a company in Pakel in Turkey. Here's the front of the bar. And one of the first things we're going to notice as we're looking at the front of the bar is that it says crispy kadayif, which is a form of shredded phyllo, and pistachio with milk chocolate. So it's this milk chocolate tea. And so that's the number one key for looking at this, that this is not made with real chocolate. Okay, so yeah, but it's also illegally labeled for sale in the United States. There's no weight on the front, so I don't know what the weight is. And I got to tell you, man, it's like I'm getting old. I'm 67. I'm not wearing my glasses. I cannot read 90% of this label without using the magnifier app on my phone. It's just, there are 7 languages that it's in: Roman, Arabic. No, there's English, French, German, Arabic, Greek, and Russian are some of the ingredients labels. Some of the languages that this is translated into. It's incredibly dense, and it's just like, whoa, right? But let's open it up. So if I do open it up, I have I sliced open the label the wrapper earlier, so I could get some and just while we're thinking about it, there's the back, right? Just to get an idea about just how crazy it is to try at the same scale. These are roughly the same size photos, right? It's just insane. So if I put my nose in it, there's nothing here that says chocolate. There's nothing here that says pistachio. There's nothing here that says the shredded phyllo in here at all. It's sort of indiscriminate. Again, it's got the same sort of biscuity aroma that was in the chocolate cones, which is kind of interesting because anything that might be biscuity is within the bar, not on the outside of the bar. But it's within the filling, which is covered in milk chocolatey. So let's go take a look at it. So what does it say? So in English, so milk compound chocolate with crispy kadayif and pistachio filling, 40%. Again, I don't know what that 40% refers to. Does it refer to the milk compound chocolate, crispy kadayif, and pistachio filling as a whole, in terms of, for every 100 grams, that makes 40%? I don't know. But the number one ingredient is sugar, vegetable oil, followed by skim milk powder, pistachio kernels, whole milk powder. So pistachio is 8%. So this one, it looks like pistachio paste, the cones, looks like the pistachio paste might have been like 42, 43%. And in this one, the pistachio paste is 8%. It's not looking very good for that. Whole milk powder, kadayif, 7%, right? So 7%. So is the kadayif wheat flour? So it's really important in ingredients list to look at what the parentheses say, because the parentheses can give you some guidance. So it says kadayif is wheat flour, which contains gluten, water, salt, sugar, right? That might be that. But then there's also cocoa powder, whey powder. Skimmed milk powder is identified as a milk powder, and these are allergens, so it's why it might be done. Cocoa butter emulsifiers, so it has lecithin, ammonium phosphatides, and PGPR, polyglycerol polycrinolate, so it has 3 emulsifiers in it. And cocoa mass, it has tahini as a sesame product. It has artificial flavoring as a vanillin. So there might be the vanillin is what the primary flavor here, right? I'm opening it up. I'm taking, let's come over here, right? So it is not decorated like the original bar was. I take a look at it. I mean, this is pretty badly deposited. This is the first time I'm looking at the back of the bar, by the way, right? Right. I'm going to scrape the little crumbs from the cones, and I'm going to slice through and give me a cross section. And here is the cross section. And so what it looks like here is that we have a little bit of filling and a very, very thick bottom, right? And so which, so I mean, the break is what I would expect, very, very soft. I mean, again, it's a compound. It's at 22, 23 degrees centigrade, whatever it is here, 72, 75 degrees in the room where I am. And I mean, there's smelling the break, smelling directly the filling. It's still overwhelmed by whatever is on the outside of it, which I believe might be the vanillin. I don't know if you can hear, but there is a texture here associated with crunching on the kadayif, the shredded phyllo, right? And it's actually an interesting texture, right? But I'm going to see if I can slice this open and get just the paste. And there's nothing in it that says pistachios. Again, this is about pistachios, right? If nothing else, this bar is about pistachios. The shredded phyllo is a crunchy element. This is about pistachios. There's nothing in here that speaks to me that says I paid a lot of money for pistachio paste as opposed to peanut butter, right? And so if I look at the ingredients again, let's go back to that. If I look at the ingredients again, one of the challenges that I'm having here is that the way the ingredients are presented doesn't follow US labeling guidelines, right? So it says, for example, the ingredients are sugar, vegetable oil, skim milk powder, but there's nothing in here. I've got cocoa butter listed here and then cocoa mass listed here, right? But I don't have milk chocolate as an ingredient with the components of the milk chocolate listed under them. I've got this kadayif, which has got wheat flour, water, salt, and sugar, which, I noticed. So yeah, sugar as an ingredient in the kadayif makes an enormous amount of sense because it's really, really sweet. The dominant flavor in here is in fact sugar, right? Not cocoa, and not pistachios. So it's, again, from a rating component, solid D tier. I'm not in a position to recommend this product. And I'll get back to why I'm doing this after I taste the third product. There's not a lot of whole room in front of my computer and in front of my desk here, so I'm moving things around. All right. If I were drunk and I came home and this were the only chocolate thing in the fridge, maybe, right? But I would have to have been out drinking at quite a level in order for me to do this. So let's go to the next one. The next one is from this company. You get close to me, right? It's called Tachi, Tchy. They're located in Lebanon, right? And this is the packaging. This is the most expensive. This is the most expensive of the three. This was $9.95. The other two were five and change each. Um, Total for all three of these bars was around 23 bucks, including tax. It's the only one that includes a calorie count on the front, and they do include a weight on the front, which is important for the United States. And there is a weight on the front of the cones, but this is a sticker, right? It was added on afterwards. It was an afterthought. Somebody forgot to put that in the original packaging. So this is what the front of the packaging looks like. Here's the back of the bar. And so I'm sorry it's not, it's clearer than this, but the ingredients are number one, milk chocolate. And so this is the way ingredients labels need to be put together. Milk chocolate. It says sugar, whole milk powder, cocoa butter, cocoa mass, cocoa powder, and then it says hydrogenated palm oil. Now, this is not legally chocolate, and it cannot be labeled legally as chocolate for sale in the United States. The moment you add any other fat other than cocoa butter into a chocolate ingredient, it is no longer legally chocolate. This might work in the UK and might work in parts of Europe where you can have up to 10%, I think 5% maybe, and you can still label it as chocolate as long as you indicate that you do have a non-cocoa butter fat in it. So this is not legal for sale. It's not branded for sale properly in the United States. So unfortunately, the case. So it has vanilla flavor. So this is likely to be an artificial vanilla, so vanillin or something like that. It's a food color, so yellow, red, and blue. It has the kunafa, the shredded phyllo dough, which includes, oh, you know what? I'm going on and saying, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing it with you. And that's a huge mistake. Sorry for doing that. Again, milk chocolate ingredients. It's got the kunafa here. So it's got sugar, flour. It doesn't indicate gluten. It's not claimed to be gluten-free, so we shouldn't. All right. Flour, sugar, vegetable oil, salt, water, starch. So starch is, I don't know, potato starch, cornstarch, some kind of plant starch. Then there is a pistachio filling, roasted pistachio, and then non-hydrogenated palm oil. All right, so we look at this, and then we look at the set of ingredients which are associated with the original Dubai bar. There's no butter, there's no cream, there's no added sugar, which is interesting here. There's no added salt, but the texture of the filling is going to be based entirely upon what the hardness of the palm oil is going to be. So it's not hydrogenated palm oil. So that means it's going to be liquid at room temperature added to the roasted pistachio paste. So it's a very, very simple filling. If it were me, I would say the kunafa is a part of the filling, right? It's not a separate thing. It's added to the filling. That's a technical point. It's made in Lebanon. And this is what the bar looks like. So there was an attempt to decorate it. So FD&C yellow is one of the colors, and so I'm guessing that this is the yellow that they're talking about here. And it's a pretty nasty back of the mold. I mean, this is not what the back of an industrial chocolate should look like. It's if you think about the corners of this is not well put together. The fit and finish of this is incredibly low. Just a quick note. But let's do a cut across, right? And we can see that the filling is uneven. It looks like it's gonna come out the side of here almost. There's an enormous amount of chocolate over here. This is not very well put together and well manufactured. The other thing which is really interesting about this is that I'm using a sort of Japanese style cleaver. It's actually quite sharp. And even at the temperature that I am, this is really hard to cut through. Although the break across the break line is really, really simple and easy. I wanted to cut through the cross section to show you what it was like at the thickest part of the bar, not at the thinnest part of the bar, which is where the break lines were. And this is the first time where I get something which slightly resembles roasted pistachio. There's no salt in this recipe anywhere. Oh, there's salt in the kunafa, right? So the shredded phyllo is crunchy. The pieces are larger. It, it strikes me more like a French fouilletine, sort of flaky rather than long and stringy. Um, so it's sort of the big pieces, and so the texture, actually, the texture of the banjaks of the kanafe and the banjak in the banjaks bar is better than this. But this is all about. I mean, I want to break this, but oh man, cutting it apart is a challenge. Oh, I mean, it's milk chocolate. It's not milk chocolatey, so it's not compound. It's milk chocolate with added palm oil. This is hydrogenated palm oil, so that contributes to the texture and the bite and the melt. I mean, it's surprisingly clean. The canafe is sweet. I mean, it's sugary. It's like bigger. It doesn't have the texture that I would want, and because of the sugar, it seems more like crystalline, crunchy kind of thing. I'm not entirely pleasant. Um, and if I'm looking at the ingredient list of the original Dubai bar, I've got something that when I open it up, it's like almost going to ooze out. It's like, you know, a nut paste for which is a natural nut paste, for which you add, which you have to stir in the fat, and it's barely holding it together and it's oozing slightly. Um, right, or is a very very not quite pipeable but just barely solid slabbable ganache as opposed to a pipeable ganache in there. These don't fit that at all. This is this particular bite, right, mostly chocolate, almost no knafe, almost none of the shredded phyllo. Uh, it's less sweet. There's not a whole lot of pistachio paste in it, so it's almost entirely the chocolate. So what's the point of all these expensive ingredients if it's in there? This is the best made of the three bars. It's the most interesting of the three bars. They made an attempt at making something. The ingredient list is reasonably okay. Again, we've got hydrogenated palm oil in the chocolate recipe, which makes it not legally chocolate, and so you can't call it that. So you know that's to worry about, and it's a big thing. So, but in terms of the overall sensorial thing, this is going to be C tier, so it's below the zero, below the ordinary level, right? In general, the way I think about it is above O. So if we think about it, so O might be recommended with reservations, whereas if you go above O, it's going to be recommended, and then if you get into S tier, it's going to be you want to make sure this is a part you want to try this, and all of these are below the O level. The first two I tried would have been D tier. This one I'm going to throw in C tier, and it's relative to everything everything that we've tasted today. Um, let's go back to see what it is that I have here. And I suppose I have questions. I mean, Mike, thanks for this question, right? Don't most Dubai bars contain tahini? The answer is they might contain tahini, but I believe tahini is there as a cost-cutting measure. Sesame seed paste is a lot less expensive than pistachio paste. It is more expensive than most butter and cream, so it is a premium ingredient, right? But it is one ingredient, and it's you mix it in, and it's not like two other ingredients that both butter and cream require refrigeration. Tahini does not, right? All you need to do is stir it to make sure that the fat is evenly distributed all the way through it. And you can get a highly roasted tahini, which is a little bit more bitter, which could be interesting. If you were making this yourself, you could get a mixture of black sesame seed, which is roasted, and white sesame seed, which is roasted, which would give you an interesting, textural and perhaps a visual component as well as a flavor component in what it is you're doing. So there are lots of ways of using the sesame seeds in a kind of way, but I think that what most people are doing is they're just getting a bulk tahini, mixing in the fat and moving it mixing it in with the pistachio paste. Why are they doing it? Because shelf life, right? If you've got butter, you got cream, you got water, you've got dairy ingredients in your center, it's a much, much shorter shelf life. If you replace them with tahini, even though the tahini might be slightly more expensive, you do have a product with an extended shelf life. So I've seen Fix list it with and without. With tahini, it makes an amazing nutty flavor. I don't disagree with you. And so this is one of the reasons why I went, when I did point out that this is the original list. So this is going back to the very beginning, right? So they may have updated it, right? And there's no reason, and I would be interested, hey, Mike, depending on what you're doing, is to say that in the Fix recipe, are there also butter and cream in it, or they're replacing the butter and cream with the tahini, right? And for anybody, again, who knows anything about tahini, I lived in Brighton Beach in Brooklyn. We have lots of Middle Eastern and Eastern European grocery stores in that part of town. I could probably buy 20 or 30 different varieties of tahini across 3 stores, located on 3 corners of an intersection. And just the vast differences are in terms of the flavor profile is interesting. And also, again, Mike, when you look at the ingredient list on this, is in what order? Is pistachio paste first and then tahini second? And then what are the other ingredients? And so what is the relative amount of tahini to pistachio paste, right? If you really want, an interesting comparison, Francois Pralou, one of his bars Infernal, one of his crazy bars, is a pistachio bar. So it's basically pistachio paste with whole pistachios stuffed in it. It's like his bar Infernal milk, which is a 45% milk he makes, called Melissa, and it's hazelnut praline unsweetened. So it's just hazelnut paste, which has got whole roasted hazelnuts in it, which is like my favorite candy bar in the world. But that might be a place to go think about pistachio, just pure pistachio, and the experience of it, compared to what it is that is going on with the Fixed dessert bar. And that's what I would say. Hey, Mike. So the recipe I found, and I tried to reach the original, butter was only used to brown the kanafe. That may be, all right, that's the way to do it. But I'm looking at these, so I'm taking the kanafe, and what it is, I'm browning and crisping. I'm including the texture of this. That would be one way to do it. But I'm also thinking about the way that, again, the way you incorporate the ingredients and use the ingredients is a part of the magic of this. It's part of what makes this this. The moment you, there is no step of browning the kanafe, or there is no step of creaming the butter, or there is no step of how and when am I going to incorporate the cream into doing this, right? All of these things are part of what make the original Dubai chocolate recipe so special, and it's what's missing here. It's what's missing. It's performative. They've got the idea, but they've missed the essence of what it is that makes it happen. And that's the final point that I'm going to make today. Hey, Mike, thanks for following up on this. What this says to me that if you are interested in making your own Dubai style product, that what you do is you go take a look at the ingredients and then you play with how you might incorporate these ingredients into the filling, right? And think about it, and this is the important about it, think about it as a baker. Don't think about it as a confectioner. Don't think about it as a chocolate maker. Think about it from the perspective of bakery. So we know that, for example, adding, if we're doing a chocolate chip cookie recipe, that adding melted butter makes a very different product than if we take the butter, we put it into a mixer, we cream it to add air into it, and then we throw the sugar into that and incorporate the sugar into the creamed fat. That will give you a very, very different texture of a cookie once you bake it than if you put melted butter in. They're both legit. Neither of them is the wrong way to do it. You just get a different product. The same thing is true with the brownies. How you mix the ingredients together is going to affect the final texture of the brownie that you make. And none of them is inherently right. None of them is inherently wrong. You just get a different texture. And that's the point here. We've got a relatively short list of ingredients, and we have a bunch of different ways to incorporate them. And how you incorporate them is going to completely change, right? The texture of what it is that goes on. And it is the texture, I contend. It is the texture which is what makes this bar. Right? And that is what, I'm walking into a little convenience store in central Arizona. I see three different versions of Dubai chocolate. They all say Dubai chocolate. And, 99.99% of the people who are looking at these things don't have the experience that I have at looking at labels and deconstructing things. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, this is that Dubai chocolate that I've heard of. And when I went and looked at the Lindt bar, oh my gosh, it was 80 grams and it was $23. And here's something that's 140 grams and it's only $9.95. Oh my gosh, this seems like a bargain, right? And they don't realize or don't stop to realize, surrounded by ring dings and, hostess products and things like that. They don't think about the sacrifices that need to get made in terms of ingredient quality or process or whatever in order to be able to, oh my gosh, ship it from Lebanon to the United States or ship it from Turkey to the United States and be able to sell it at this price. Whereas if you were to go to Dubai and walk into the Fixed Dessert Cafe and buy these bars there, right, what it is that you'd be able to get and what you can do, right, when you have that kind of attention to detail, attention to ingredients, and taking a different perspective on this. And one of the things that I think I learned more than anything in doing the research behind the original bar. And Mike, thanks for pointing it out. That yes, there may be different recipes for this. I went back to the original recipe. That's the oldest one that I could find. But slight differences in the method of preparation. This is what I learned. Differences in the method of preparation are going to give you a huge effect. And if you do have an ingredient like butter, you do have an ingredient like cream, you've got a shelf life issue that you don't have if what you're going to do is using only sesame paste, only tahini in it. So you've got flavor and texture, and you've got the flavor and the texture, which is associated with the ratios of all these things to get the pistachio cream to exactly the right texture that you're looking for. Is it, it's not runny, but it's like on the edge. It's like, a crystallized, it's like a creamed honey, maybe a, really super creamed where you could put your spoon in and turn it upside down and it won't fall out. I mean, something like that. And you put it in and it's unctuous and, it's thick, right? That's one thing Lindt didn't understand is that, it's not about just putting pistachio paste in something. It's about this experience, which is incredibly luxurious with this really thick profile, right? Which is important to consider, right? And that's it for today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the post for today's episode, after I get done, I'm going to put my rating, so my tier rating on it. Afterwards, I'm also going to do a little TLDR and what I think is and isn't going on with these. I mean, of the three of these, I think the only one I might finish would be the Tachi bar, but it's a hit or miss bar, right? It's better ingredients, cleaner ingredient list overall than most of the other things, but it has some serious flaws in terms of the way it was constructed. And with that, I want to say thanks everybody for joining me today. This episode of Pod Save Chocolate is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. You can go to the homepage of the Chocolate Life right now. If you are not a member, this is the homepage. You can click on the join button, right, and become a member. Right? There's always been a free membership tier. Paid memberships start as little as $5 a month. But if you go to the annual plans at the higher levels, they also include consulting. Right? You can get on the phone. You can ask me questions. We can do things by email, and I can try to help you solve your chocolate problems, assuming that you have chocolate problems. Anything that you need to do for marketing, formulation, new product development, you name it, I can help you with those things. And that's it for today. Thank you very much, everybody. And I want to sign off, as I always do, by reminding you, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Until the next time, everybody, ciao, and have a great weekend.